Hello everybody, today I'm going to be showing you how to build a compact PC. This is going to be something similar to what you're seeing today with the Steam boxes or Alienware X51. It's something small that can go next to your TV in the living room. For a case, I'll be using this Silverstone Raven RVZ01. In my opinion, this is the best compact case because of everything you can put in it and how it looks. For the CPU, I'll be using this Intel i7-3770K. I'll also be using this Asus Mini ITX motherboard. 16 gigs of RAM. I'll also be water cooling the CPU with this Corsair H50 liquid cooler. For a graphics card, I'll be using this Superclock EVGA 970. I'll be using this 450 watt SFX power supply. And these Silverstone flexible cables, since space is going to be a little tight inside. And finally, I'll be putting in 2 SSDs and a Blu-ray player. Alright, so let's begin building the PC. I'm going to start off by installing the CPU. To do this, I'll just remove the latch right here. And align the CPU. Make sure the little triangle is on the bottom left hand corner that you can see on the CPU, and just drop it in. Then close the cover, remove that protector cap, and put the latch back in its place. For our next step, I'll be placing in the RAM. We have two 8GB RAM sticks, and this step's pretty straightforward. Just align the RAM and push down on them until you hear a click. Once we've got both the sticks in, our 16GB of RAM are ready to go. As you can see now, we have our CPU and RAM installed so far. Our next step is to place the back plate for our liquid cooler. So to do this, we're just going to flip the motherboard on its side, and you should be able to easily put it in the back plate once you got it online. Now that our back plate is in place, I'll just show you real quick how our top part is going to be placed later on. So now you can see how this is going to look later on. Alright, so now we're going to move into our case. Let's take off the cover real quick, and you'll be able to see that space here is going to be a little cramped once we start putting everything inside. The first thing I'm going to do is take off the graphics card holder and the power supply holder to make a little bit of room. And besides, we'll need to take them off to install the parts anyways. I went ahead and installed the fans that will be cooling our graphics card. Got them in place already. So the first thing I'll be installing is the I/O shield. All you have to do is just push it into place, and then you just hear a little click and it'll be ready to go. Now let's get our motherboard installed. Alright, so just line up your motherboard with your I/O shield and where your screws are going to go, and just set it in place. Once you got it in place, just start screwing on the 4 screws you need. There's one on each corner of the motherboard. Now we're moving on to the power supply. Let's place it in this little metal cage it comes with, and turn it to its back and screw on the screws to hold it in place. This is an SFX factor power supply, which to my surprise is a lot smaller than a regular size power supply. So now that our power supply is secured in this little metal cage, we're going to place it in our case. Make sure to plug in the power cord on the back of it. Then we'll have to set it in place. Make sure you put these other cables behind the power supply. And this by far was the trickiest part of the whole installation. It's pretty hard getting it in place, and after that, screwing on the screws, space was so cramped, it took me quite a while. Once you finally got it in place, just put on the screws. I was actually only able to put on 3 screws instead of the 4th. I could not reach the last one. For the next step, we'll be installing our 2 SSDs. The SSDs go on top of the graphics card holder, and they're really easy to install. Just slide them into place, as you can see now, and then screw on the 4 screws for each of them. And now we have our SSDs installed, and we're moving on to the Blu-ray player. To install the Blu-ray player, you have to slide it into the bottom part of the graphics card holder and then secure it with these 2 small screws. This may be a little difficult simply because the screws are so small. Now you can see we have our Blu-ray player and 2 SSDs installed. So the next step is to install the graphics card. As I mentioned before, we'll be using this EVGA GTX 970. All you have to do is align it and then push it into its place. You'll hear a small click once it's in place. To finish this off, we'll be placing 2 screws to secure it. This next part is optional. This little plastic piece is a graphics card holder that comes with a case. It just gives the graphics card more support to keeping it in place. It comes in handy if you have a really long graphics card. So just get it in place and tighten up the screw. The next step is to start working on all the wiring. I've already have one cable going here. It's the graphics card power cable. So I'll just plug that into the power supply. The next cable I have in my hand is the front audio cable. Then the USB 3.0. Just plug it in right into the motherboard. Since there's not much room in this case, you might need to plan ahead to see how you're gonna maneuver your cables around here. The next cable is a SATA power cable. Just gonna plug it in for now and move it to the side. The next cable is a processor power cable, which is gonna go in this port in the motherboard. And the last cable is the 24-pin power cable that's going to the motherboard. Now we got all the cables that are plugged into the power supply ready to go. Next we're going to install the graphics card. It's going to go in this part of the case. Make sure you align the PCI Express port, then push it into place. Now that's done. As you can see, I kind of organized the power supply cables a little better now. And don't forget to screw on your graphics card holder. These next cables are the front panel cables. Now that those are plugged in, I'm going to push them to the side and grab the SATA power cable. Then plug them into the two SSDs and the Blu-ray player. Slide it through the little hole to get it to the Blu-ray, and then plug it in. The next cables are the SATA cables. These are going to the two SSDs and the Blu-ray player. Now you can see my cables are a lot better organized, and the whole thing looks a lot better. Now the last step is to install the water cooler. This step is optional. If you don't intend on overclocking your CPU, then the stock Intel cooler works perfectly. You also need a slim profile fan, otherwise your radiator won't fit in the case. So here you'll see how it's gonna go inside. And now you can see the heat sinks installed. Finally, we need to put the cover back on, and this build is finished. And here's our finished computer. And as you can see, it looks great. As I said before, in my opinion, this is the best case for a compact computer. Now I've got this thing powered on, and as you can see the i7-3770K CPU, the 16 gigs of RAM, the temperature, the voltage, fans, everything seems to be working okay. And here's the case with the two fans on it. Those LEDs make it look really cool. In my opinion, it looks a lot better than the X51, even though it's slightly bigger than it. Alright, so we're going to go into Windows. And everything seems to be working perfectly so far. So let's see the system specs real quick. You can see our processor and our RAM. So now let's perform our benchmark test and play some games. So here's my Firestrike benchmark score, 10,811. The 9,470 score is from the 970 when it was installed in my X51. And as you can see, this system performs better. Now let's test it on a game. We'll be trying it on Assassin's Creed 4. Just gotta wait for this to load. And you can see on the top left corner of the screen there's a temperature, frames, memory usage, and speed. Let's check out the settings real quick. Everything's set to max with 1440p resolution. Well, everything max except physics. Alright, so let's jump in the game. Alright, so you can see now our frames are around 30 frames per second. I think I have the V-Sync on. Let me take that off real quick. Yep, I do. Let me take that off real quick so I can get a better idea of what frames I'm getting. 58, 60, looks like in the upper 50s, 60s. And our temperature is only at 68, so it's a lot better than the 80 degrees X51 that I had. So far I'm really happy with what this computer can do. So if you're looking for a small compact computer set next to your living room maybe, this is a great option. You can even install a 980 in this case if you want more power. Either way, you'll get great results. So this is it for the video. I hope you liked it, and if you have any doubts or questions, please leave them in the comment section, and don't forget to give me a like on the video. Thanks guys.